All right, now we're learning, continuing the Dvar Malchut of the Rebbe, a speech that the Rebbe gave in 1991. And that year, these two Torah portions, this week's Torah portion and next week's, they were joined together. That's what it is in every regular, normal year. But this year being a leap year, so we have 4 extra, so to speak, Shabbat. So we have to fill them up. So we separate these Torah portions that are usually joined when the year is shorter. But nevertheless, our topic is, as the Rebbe is always speaking, Moshiach and the future redemption. And how important it is, how vital it is, how necessary it is, how, in fact, it's really the only thing that's really important. The only thing that's really important. All the Jewish people were only created for this future redemption. The Torah was given for the future redemption. As we just finished learning in the Maimer, the world was created for this future redemption. The only reason we're here and that we're breathing and that we're eating and we have our feet on the ground and our head above on the top and the feet on the bottom is only to bring this future redemption. That's it. To reveal the true nature of the world. Reveal the true nature of the world, the true, amazing, holy, happy, meaningful nature of every single instant, the miracle and the mystery of every single instant, the happiness, the joy of every single instant of life. How miraculous it is that we're alive and that we're but even more, most important is our responsibility to the Creator, that we can actually fulfill our responsibility to the Creator by just thinking good and acting good and speaking good every second. So it's a little bit, and who's going to cause this? The Moshiach. Moshiach is going to cause it. And who is the Moshiach? The Moshiach is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Moshiach is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He is the will come and redeem the Jewish people. Right? Or somebody exactly like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. In any case, it's going to be somebody that we have to wait for. It's one person like Moses, just like Moses. Nobody dreamed that they would get out of Egypt. Moses came along, whoop, and that's the birth of Judaism. That's the month of Nisan. We just finished learning about that in the Maimer. Okay. So Moshiach is going to do all these amazing, beautiful, wonderful, positive, miraculous, beneficial, helpful, loving things. So why is the Moshiach called, in the Talmud, the Moshiach is called a leper, Metzora? What's going on? Let's jump too far over. There we go. And if you remember from last time, the Rebbe asked 4 questions about this. Number 1 was the Moshiach is called a leper in relation to this week's Torah portion. It's called a leper, a Metzora. Leper is really the wrong word because it's not leprosy. Leprosy was I think it still is a terrible disease, painful. This, as far as I know, was not painful. This Metzora, it was just a discoloration of the skin. It was impurity. A person felt impurity. Usually impurity was connected to being unhappy, feeling you couldn't feel happy, taking away like some sort of an approach to death. Death is the ultimate impurity. And this Metzora is right next to it. It's not far away. It's not far away. It's also a type of impurity. But nevertheless, the Moshiach is called a leper. Why? So he says, okay, let's look at also these 2 Torah portions that we're learning right now. Tazria, Metzora. Tazria, that's this week, and Metzora is next week. So this year we learn them one at a time. We separate them, but it's still the same thing. Says the Rebbe that first of all, Tazria seems to be a good thing, giving seed. Metzora is a bad thing. That's the disease. So they come in sort of the wrong order. Tazria, this is talking about the future redemption. How the Jewish people will be redeemed and the world will be okay. That's Tazria, giving seed, giving birth to a new world. And Metzora is talking about being sick. So usually the sickness comes before the cure. Tazria is the cure. But here the cure comes before the sick. What's going on? First of all, there's going to be redemption. Then everybody's going to be sick. What does that mean? Tazria and then Metzora. Question number 2. How can it be that after, what's going to be? What does it mean that after there's going to be the future redemption, then there's going to be disease? The future redemption is supposed to be no more bad in the world. And why is Metzora indicates that there is going to be bad? Question number 3. It seems that the content of this week's Torah portion is exactly the opposite of its name. The name is Tazria, which means a good thing, giving seed. And the whole Torah portion talks about the disease of Tzoraat. That's what the next week's Torah portion talks about how to heal the Metzora. The process of making purifying Metzora. So that's talking about the healing. And the name of it is talking about the disease. So that's not right. Here is talking about the healing, but the content, the name is to be healed. But the content of the Torah, this week's Torah portion, is the disease. And next week's Torah portion is called the disease, and its whole content is to be healed. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, a fourth question is, why is the Moshiach called a leper, a Metzora? Such a terrible name. He's redeeming all the Jewish people, saving the whole world. He's called a Metzora. Why? Okay. Yuvan, we can understand, first of all, the explanation in Negaim. Okay, this week's Torah reading talks about this thing of Negaim. Negaim is Metzora, Tzoraat. What is this Tzoraat? Like I told you before, it's not really a disease. It's not, contagious or something like that. No way. Not contagious. And the person, it doesn't really feel like sick or anything. There's no physical cure. You can cure the people. You can't put some sort of a treatment or a pill or What exactly is this disease? Very strange. It's a discoloration of the skin. That's only the sign, and it indicates that the person is impure. Interestingly, as we learned, and we're going to learn today also, that if a person sees these signs and he does not go to a Kohen, he keeps it to himself, then he's not impure. It has to be that a Kohen is like the priestly, right? A Kohen comes and sees him, looks at it. If the Kohen doesn't know, he gets an expert to look at him. The expert looks, and the expert tells the Kohen, this man is impure. He's got Tzoraat. The Kohen then declares this man is impure. The expert can't declare. If the expert declares, it means nothing. In the same way, when the person becomes healed, it can be all the signs of impurity leave him, but he remains impure to the end of his life, unless he gets a Kohen, and the Kohen looks, and if the Kohen doesn't know the laws, the Kohen, let's say, is whatever, he forgot, he calls an expert, the expert looks and tells the Kohen, this man is cured. The Kohen says, you are cured. It all depends on a Kohen. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense. The whole disease makes no sense whatsoever. So let's see what this disease is. Spiritual, you want to call it spiritual imperfection. You want to call it, I don't know, what's the better word for disease? Imperfection. Okay, how does the sentence go? Let's look at this thing. It doesn't, by the way, this doesn't exist anymore. Only in the time of the temple it existed. In this form, we'll see that it exists in another form today. We'll see. It says a person that has in the skin of his flesh, etc. Neged Tzoraat, it says there's a beheret and there's a sapachat, different shades of white. Mevor, it's explained in Likutei Torah, How does it start out? Adam. Remember, we learned this yesterday. Adam is Medrega Gedola, is the highest level. You can look in the what is it, YouTube, in the past classes, you can see that we learned, it's a very short mimer. We learned yesterday. Adam, it says Adam, Adam, a person. Now there's 4 different names for man in the Torah. There's Gever, there's Enosh, there's Ish, and there's Adam. Adam, the name Adam, each one of them indicates a certain, how do you say, level of perfection of man. Now, a person that controls himself, they totally, and that follows only what's good, that's called the Adam. A person that sort of loses it a little bit, he's let a little bit sort of, he doesn't let his mind rule over him, doesn't do what he's right all the time, etc. That's like an Enosh or Ish or a Gever. That's it. But Adam, this is Adam, it says, the appellation, Adam, Huba Madriga Gedola. This is like, how do you say, perfection, a perfect man. Lefishu Shlema de Kula, as he is, completion of all. Man is created in the image of God, right? Created in the image of God. So Adam Hazeh, this man, Kishamuch Sharin Ma'asav, when he fixes up all of his deeds, Vatikin called Dvarim, and he does everything that he's supposed to. In civics, I guess they call it a perfect citizen, right? What do they call it? The picture citizen, there's a word for it. Ideal citizen. He does what he's supposed to. He cares about other people. He helps others, right? He's honest, and he's helpful, and he's loving, and he has a bit of a sense of humor, and he has everything is right, good. He's gives charity. Right, but here we're talking about not in society, but not only in society, but also in relation to God. That's an Adam. That's an Adam. As Yochel the Dayan, there can be a person that's an Adam, that he's perfect in serving God according to his personality, of course, serving God, doing. But it could still be, this is the mimer in Likutei Torah, it could be that this person still has a little bit of a blemish, a little bit of egotism, something that's not fixed up, be'or b'saro, and it just shines in the outer, most external aspects of his personality, namely in his skin. In the lowest level of his humanness. It could be the little bit is not refined. Maybe he's got a little bit of a bad temper. He gets a little bit jealous. He has a little bit of depression, a little bit of aggression. And the something in his connection to God, or something's not okay. So he gets a sign, he gets a warning sign, so he can fix it up. That's what this blemishes are of a Tzoraat. Because Shabaruchni is because serving spiritually in the service of God, Tikkun Masav, he fixed everything he has to, his speech, his action, his thought. Ubir Ramin Atov, and he separated the bad from the good. He separated his egotism from his true Judaism. The call of the Devarim and everything. Bir Ramin Guf, that he has removed all of his selfishness from his body and from his soul. But there's a little bit, a pasolis, a little bit of waste, a little residue, shebesof levushav, in the end, in the most external of his garments, a dayan lon is bar, it has not been yet refined. And therefore, nolda basaro, therefore, there is a little bit of a blemish only on the outside. And the Alter Rebbe in the Likutei Torah says, therefore, nowadays we don't have the disease because nobody is so perfect. Everybody, there's no such thing as a perfect person that has perfected himself totally inside, still a little bit outside. Everybody has some sort of a little blemish inside. Then we can add on the neged Tzoraat. This is a person when there is in the flesh of his, when there's the skin of his flesh, neged Tzoraat, be'or b'saro. It says just in the skin of his flesh. Lozu bilvad, not only that it's not relevant to the essence, his bones, the essence of the person, the Adam, the girim shelo, or his sinews, it's not even, doesn't even touch his flesh, the girim, or his ligaments of the man. This Tzoraat is the most external of external aspects of man, namely the skin. This is not even his flesh, which the person's flesh or his fat. This changes a little bit according to how much he eats, or his blood. It's connected to his blood. Or just on the skin, the most external part of a person's body. The external of the external is Adam Kiyeh B'or Basaro. What does it mean? She'ein l'davar regil. It's not a normal thing. This is an Adam. This Kiyeh, if it just happens to be Mikre, it's just Mikre and Nikret. It's just a thing that occurred, like a surprise. Hayotze Migerer Regil. All of a sudden pops up on his skin this impurity, the sign that something's wrong with him. And then, even when it's on the most external part, it's just a nega. Nega means a blemish, but it also means it's just touched. Negia. This negative thing, it's not really relevant to him, not really relevant even to his skin. It's just a neg, it just touched him. Right? Like you brush by somebody in the street. Right? The person, you don't even know who the person is. The same thing, this nega, something that just happens to the person, and it's just in the most external. Or even more, like it's explained in Likutei Torah. Also, Negayim, Dvar Malchut. Says really the fact of the matter is that this blemish that is in his skin that shows that something's wrong, a little tiny thing is wrong with his soul, that this warning sign, this is very, very high, is God himself is showing me that there's something wrong with me. We see that it's not a normal thing. It's not a regular disease. The person is not called impure until a Kohen says that he's pure. And if the Kohen does not say these words, even if all the experts come and they see the greatest Talmudic scholars come and they look at this person and they say, this is all the signs, this is the classic sign of Negat Tzoras. This is it. All the people say, yes, yes, this is it. But if there's no Kohen there to say is impure, and then it's not impure. It says they are just what's called pure high lights of God. Rakshan Dinim Kashan, it just says that it's just this is the severity of holiness. So what's going on over here? We say that the fact that God sends down a sign to a person that he's got something to fix up is a sign that God really is paying attention to me. He really cares about every little thing that I do. And not only that, this imperfection that I have is something that's very, very, very incidental to my personality. And this is important to God enough that he sends this sign down on me. Says really this is a tremendously high thing showing how exact God is with all of his creations and how caring he is. And until a Kohen actually comes and declares this man is impure, it's a very high, pure thing. Yesh Lomer, we can say, that these two things, Shenagayim says that imperfections, they're rak pasola shebesov levushim, she'adayin lo nisbar, that, what does it say? That these Nagayim, this Tzoras, is only like an incidental, very small flaw that I have in the external of my soul. And at the same time, this is very, very high, tremendously high lights. They depend one on the other. Even since the Nagayim, since that this whole idea of the Tzoraat is essentially very high things, Orot El Yonim, very high lights. Therefore, Gamshin Ishtal Shlomehem, Therefore, even when there comes something that's not good, an imperfection in my personality and my soul, and this gives what's called the yanika lechitzoni, that I am a little bit out of control. Harizeh, that the world controls me. Harizeh rak inyan chitzoni. This is only an external thing, and that's relevant. Bebechinas tachtona, to the lowest aspect. How do you say, to the most external things of me? What's he saying? What's he saying? It says, the fact is, a Jew is the essence of God. If a Jew can do something that's not good, even if it's a very small thing, a very external thing, very external thing, but nevertheless it reaches the essence of God. Sometimes the essence of God is something that's so high that an imperfection can only be expressed in the most outer aspects of the soul, namely the skin. It's so high that it can't be comprehended in normal ways. It has to be shown in a very, very low way. And therefore, the way to fix this up is not by means of doing something new, but you just have to reveal inyanim emiti shel negoim. They just have to reveal the fact. Where does this disease come from? It comes from a very high source. Like it says, Zoti Tzoraat Matzora biyom tarato. This is the day of the impurity of the purification of the Matzora when he becomes pure. The tarato is by means of yom, day. Inyani or vigiloi. Like it says, Vayikra Elokim le'or yom. God called the day, the light, he called day. Okay, so how do you purify these? Let's just take a simple example. Let's say, because I've got to use symbols. I think a person that, let's say, he gets fired from his job, and he's terribly depressed, and he really feels bad, and the depression is like death, and he really feels bad. Someone comes and says, "You know why you got fired from your job? Why?" I know why, because I'm a loser, because everything I do is wrong. I have no right to want to be alive anymore. I just says, listen, you got the whole picture wrong. The reason that you got fired from your job is because God has this big plan for you. And while you're stuck in that job, you're not going to be able to get this plan. He's going to surprise you. Don't worry about it. You're going to get a big surprise. God personally himself is sent you this blemish, right? It's no big deal. You got fired from your job. Don't make a big thing out of it. It's a very external thing. It could be that you messed up a few times. You said, right, you yelled at a customer. Okay, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is it's very, very high, holy thing that you got kicked out of your work because God has a big plan for you. It's all part of a big, huge, what's called hashgacha pratit, the big plan that God wants to improve you. Now all of a sudden a person looks and says, yeah, really, it could be God personally himself arranged it that I should get evicted from my job. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. Now I realize that it was a bad thing, but it's only a sign from a very high thing. Wow. And if you think about it, getting evicted from my job, it's not like I lost a leg or I lost an eye. And even if I lost a leg, it's not like I got killed. This is very, very high. All of a sudden, it changes the whole thing around by putting God into the picture and so this is by means of this high lights, by means of revealing this high lights as where these bad things really come from. Then by means of this, then the chitzonim, negative things, in my case, being depressed, thoughts of suicide, God forbid, being all angry, being all confused. This is what's called external things. Letting the world gets no more, nurture. Until lahepech tahora afilu b'chitzonis v'bar. till the bad has no connection even to my skin, even the most external parts of my mind. Nothing in the world will ever be able to make me depressed or give up again. So that's what he says. Because when we realize that this plague, whatever it is, the disease, is a very external thing, and that it comes from the essence of God, and it's really a good thing, is by means of this, revealing these high lights, as that comes to put everything in its proper place. Suddenly everything takes the proper perspective. And we don't think that there's no way out and there's nothing good is going to come out of this. Suddenly we have a little more patience. We can wait for the miracles of God. And that essentially is going to be the whole future redemption. It's going to be a huge surprise. We just have to sort of let go of the bad things that we're holding on to, that we think give us stability or that we react to improperly. As we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Let's learn the Yom Yom. It's in Hebrew. Here we go. The Chassid, Mordechai Horodaker. That was his name. It was a Chassid. He said, the first saying that we heard from the altar Rebbe, from the first Rebbe of Chabad, when we arrived in Liazna, was, what is forbidden from the Torah is forbidden. What is permissible, what's optional, usually is unnecessary. For 3 or 4 years, we labored with this until we integrated this into our service of various aspects of our lives. Only then did we go into Yechidus to ask for a path and avoda. What does it mean? And what's forbidden? You can't eat. Eating forbidden food is forbidden. But it's permissible to eat kosher food. It's permissible to eat kosher food. But most of the kosher food that's permissible to eat, right, it's not necessary for you to eat. So big deal. It's not necessary, but you can do whatever. I only do what's necessary. I can do also what's necessary. No. You should do what's necessary. If it's necessary for your well-being to eat well, to eat tasty food, to eat cream puffs, if it's really necessary, then you should do it. Necessary for you to do that. But don't fool yourself. Don't think it's necessary when it's not necessary. What's forbidden, for sure you shouldn't do. What's necessary, what's permissible to do, is probably 90% not necessary to do. Not necessary. You don't have to do it. And a chassid is a person that he doesn't do what's not necessary for him. He does what's necessary. What's necessary? I should do Torah. I should do the commandments. I should be a good person. I should give charity. I should help others. I should be pleasant. If it's necessary that you should dress nicely, then good. Dress nicely. Makes a good impression on people. Very nice. If it's necessary that you should buy $2,000 suits, right? You have to impress, then do that, right? If it's necessary that you have to buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something like that, because you want to make the other people that have Lamborghinis listen to you, and they'll start acting properly, then go ahead. But don't fool yourself. What's necessary, you should do. What's optional is probably not necessary. Don't do it. Said we had to work on this. These were big Hasidim, 3 or 4 years in order to integrate this into their personalities. And only then did they enter to see the Alter Rebbe and ask for a path in serving God. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, 3 o'clock, we'll talk about today the I need to say, uncomfortable topic of Metzora. But you should know that there's no Metzora today, so it puts it a little bit sort of distant from us. But as the Alter Rebbe said, there really is a positive thing that comes out of it. So the very happy subject of Metzora, we're going to learn, God willing, at 3 o'clock. Be with us. Have a good day with Moshiach now.